When my wife, Emily, first brought up the idea of opening our marriage, I thought I had misheard her. We'd been together for nearly a decade, and I believed we had a strong relationship. Sure, there were ups and downs, but nothing that made me think she wanted to explore intimacy with other people. She sat me down one night after dinner, her hands nervously wrapped around a cup of tea, and told me she'd been reading about open relationships and how they could help couples grow. She said it wasn't about replacing me, but about finding herself, discovering new experiences, and keeping things fresh. At first, I resisted. I told her it sounded like she wanted to have her cake and eat it too, that we should work on our marriage instead of bringing other people into it. But she kept pressing. She talked about how monogamy could be stifling, how we were still young enough to enjoy other connections, and how she'd never stop loving me no matter what. I was reluctant, but I could see she'd already made up her mind. I think a part of me was scared that if I said no, she'd leave anyway. So eventually, I agreed hesitantly, cautiously, and with the condition that we set ground rules. The rules were simple at first: honesty about who we were seeing, no mutual friends, and never bringing anyone to our home. For the first few months, Emily seemed happier than I'd seen her in years. She was going out more, dressing up in ways she hadn't in a long time, and constantly texting someone. She claimed it was just casual, that these other men meant nothing, and that I was still her number one. I tried to believe her. I even forced myself to be supportive, asking how her nights out went, though deep down I felt jealous and insecure. For a while, I didn't even think about finding someone for myself. I was too focused on trying to adapt to this new reality, to make peace with the idea of my wife being intimate with other men. But something shifted after about 6 months. I was tired of feeling left behind, so I downloaded a dating app. I didn't expect much, maybe some conversations, maybe a casual fling. Instead, I met Sarah. Sarah was different from anyone I'd ever met. She was warm, funny, and genuinely interested in me. From our first date, I felt an ease I hadn't felt in years. We talked for hours, not just about surface-level stuff, but about life, dreams, and fears. There was no pretense, no hidden agenda. She made me feel valued and desired in a way Emily hadn't in a long time. One date turned into 2, then 3, and before I knew it, Sarah had become a big part of my life. I kept things discreet at first, not because I was breaking our rules, but because I wasn't sure how Emily would react to me finding someone I actually connected with. But soon, I noticed Emily becoming more curious and then more anxious about my whereabouts. She started asking who I was seeing, if it was serious, and if I still loved her the same. Her tone had changed. The excitement she once had about our open marriage was gone, replaced by suspicion and insecurity. One evening, after I came home from spending the day with Sarah, Emily confronted me in the kitchen. She asked outright if I was falling for this woman. I didn't lie. I told her yes, I cared for Sarah deeply. Her face went pale. She admitted that she thought she could handle an open marriage, but she never imagined I'd actually develop feelings for someone else. She had assumed she would be the one with the upper hand, the one having all the fun while I stayed in my place, loyal and waiting. From that point on, things between us unraveled quickly. Emily began canceling her dates, focusing on me again, but it felt forced. She wanted to close the marriage again, to go back to the way things were before. But the truth was, there was no going back. I couldn't unfeel what I felt for Sarah. I couldn't forget the way Emily had pushed me into this arrangement, only to regret it when the consequences didn't favor her. I started spending more nights at Sarah's place, sometimes staying over for the weekend. Emily became increasingly emotional, crying and begging me to cut things off. She said she made a mistake, that she didn't realize how much she loved me until she saw me with someone else. I listened, but her words rang hollow. Where was this devotion when she was out with other men, telling me that love wasn't about exclusivity? Eventually, I told Emily I wanted a separation. She was devastated, but I knew it was the only way forward. Our marriage had been damaged beyond repair not because of Sarah, but because Emily had opened a door she wasn't ready for, and we both walked through it in different directions. Now, I'm still with Sarah, and I'm genuinely happy. She supports me, respects me, and makes me feel valued. Emily and I are in the process of divorce, and while part of me will always care for her, I can't help but see the irony in the situation. She got what she wanted, freedom, but lost the one person she thought would always be there. And as much as she regrets everything, I don't. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living honestly, and I have no intention of going back. Emily didn't take the separation well. At first, she tried everything to win me back: late night calls, showing up at my workplace, even sending me long letters about the life we built together and how she'd do anything to fix it. But I couldn't shake the memory of those early months after she opened the marriage, when I'd be sitting at home alone while she was out laughing, dancing, and spending nights with men she barely knew. She'd come home smelling like someone else's cologne, brushing it off with, "It's just part of the arrangement." Remember, it wasn't that I wanted revenge. If anything, I was shocked at how little bitterness I felt. What surprised me most was the sense of clarity, how quickly the fog lifted once I stopped trying to keep a sinking ship afloat. For so long, I thought our marriage was worth sacrificing my boundaries for, worth bending until I barely recognized myself. But now I could see it for what it really was: a partnership that had slowly become one-sided, where her needs and desires mattered more than mine. Meanwhile, my connection with Sarah kept growing. She wasn't some rebound or distraction, she genuinely understood me. I could tell her about my fears without being made to feel small. When I talked, she actually listened, not just waited for her turn to speak. We spent nights cooking together, laughing over burnt pasta or arguing playfully about which movies deserved a rewatch. It was the kind of simple, easy joy I didn't realize I'd been missing. Emily's regret, however, turned into resentment. She accused me of choosing her replacement and throwing away our years together for someone you just met. But deep down, she knew the truth: Sarah didn't replace her. Sarah filled a space in my life that Emily had long abandoned, long before I even met her. Our divorce talks were tense. She wanted to negotiate terms that made it seem like she was the wrong party, but I wasn't willing to carry the guilt she was trying to hand me. When she tried to bring up the idea that Sarah had broken up our marriage, I calmly reminded her that she was the one who suggested bringing other people into it. Her silence after that said more than any argument could. I thought seeing her sad would hurt me more, but instead, I felt something closer to relief. She had made her choices, just as I had. The only difference was that I had found peace with mine. Emily still seemed stuck in a loop of what-ifs, wishing she could undo what she started. As I signed the divorce papers, I realized something important. I wasn't just ending a marriage, I was reclaiming myself. For years, I defined my happiness by hers, bending over backwards to make sure she felt fulfilled, even at the cost of my own well-being. But now, I finally understood that love isn't about tolerating disrespect in the name of commitment. It's about mutual respect, trust, and actually wanting the other person to feel safe and valued. Sarah and I are still together, and I don't know what the future holds. But I do know this: when Emily opened our marriage, she thought she'd be the one to benefit. She never imagined I'd find someone who made me feel whole again. And the irony? I'm not just okay with how it turned out. I'm grateful. If she had never suggested it, I might still be stuck in that same cycle, convincing myself things weren't so bad. Now, I'm free. Free from the guilt, the games, and the constant feeling of being not enough. She may regret everything, but I don't regret a thing. Because for the first time in years, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even after the divorce was finalized, Emily still reached out from time to time, as if she couldn't quite believe it was over. Some of her messages were apologetic, dripping with nostalgia for the good old days. Others were angry and sharp, blaming me for giving up too soon or replacing her at the first opportunity. I didn't respond to most of them. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because I had learned that engaging would only pull me back into the emotional quicksand I'd finally escaped. Emily thrived on stirring up conflict. It was how she kept control. I wasn't going to hand her that power anymore. The truth was, our marriage had been dead long before Sarah came along. Emily just hadn't noticed because she was too busy chasing something more exciting. She thought the open marriage would give her a taste of freedom without real consequences. But actions have a way of snowballing. Once you push someone far enough, they stop trying to come back. That's what she never understood. Trust isn't infinite. Sarah and I built our relationship slowly, without the drama and manipulation I'd grown used to. We had honest talks about boundaries, respect, and how we wanted to treat each other. It felt almost strange at first, like living in a house where no one slammed doors anymore. I could breathe. Friends who knew both Emily and me were shocked at how quickly I seemed to bounce back. But it wasn't quick. The grieving had happened during the marriage itself, and all those lonely nights when I was already mourning something that was supposed to still be alive. By the time I left, I was ready for peace. One day, months later, I saw Emily at a cafe. She wasn't alone. She was with one of the guys she used to see during our open marriage phase. She looked tired, older somehow, like life had been draining her instead of filling her up. When our eyes met, she gave a small, awkward wave. I nodded back politely, but I didn't walk over. Later, I realized that moment was the true closure. There was no hatred left in me, no need for revenge or one last speech. Just a quiet acceptance that our paths had split, and I had chosen the one that led me somewhere better. Emily might always regret opening our marriage, but I can't share that regret with her. She gave me the push unintentionally that I needed to see what I really deserved. And in the end, that might have been the most valuable thing she ever gave me. Now, when I wake up next to Sarah, there's no gnawing uncertainty, no feeling like I have to fight for my place in her life. I'm not just someone's second choice or backup plan. I'm exactly where I want to be, with someone who wants me there too. And that's worth more than the marriage I left behind. A year after the divorce, Emily tried one last grand gesture. She sent me a long, handwritten letter, pages and pages of it, telling me she still loved me, that she'd made a horrible mistake in ever suggesting an open marriage, that she'd been in a dark place and thought she needed more freedom to be happy. She wrote about the memories we shared, about how no one else had ever truly understood her the way I had, about how she still dreamed of us getting back together. I read the whole thing. I didn't skim it, and I didn't toss it in the trash. But when I put it down, I felt the same calm detachment I'd felt the day I saw her in that cafe. The words were heavy with emotion, but they didn't land on me anymore. They floated past, like leaves on a river I was no longer swimming in. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say. Sarah and I had moved in together by then. We were making a home, a real one, where we both felt wanted and safe. We were planning a trip overseas, something I'd always wanted to do but never could because Emily always said she was too busy or not in the mood to travel. With Sarah, everything felt lighter. We didn't have to bargain for joy, it was just there, every day, and the little things. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to the moment Emily first brought up opening the marriage. I remember the way she tried to frame it as something that would bring us closer and remove pressure. At the time, I was scared of losing her, so I went along with it. Now I realize she had already mentally left me. She just wanted me to make it official without her having to be the bad guy. But the twist she never saw coming was that I wouldn't just fade into the background while she explored her options. I found my own. And unlike hers, mine was built on something real. The irony is that Emily once told me she didn't believe people could truly find happiness with someone new after a long relationship, that everyone just settled for less. I wish she could see me now. Not to rub it in, but to prove to her and maybe to myself that it's possible to not just recover, but to thrive. Her regret is her burden to carry, not mine. My life isn't a consolation prize. It's a choice I made, one I keep making every day. And I'll never go back. I think Emily eventually stopped trying to contact me because the last message I got from her was over a year ago. It was short, just one sentence: I hope you're happy. No sarcasm, no bitterness. Just that. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say that wouldn't reopen wounds for either of us. The truth was, I was happy. Happier than I'd been in years, and not in a way that was fueled by revenge or proving a point. It was just a quiet, steady contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. Sarah and I grew closer over time. We had our differences. She's a morning person, I'm not. She's meticulous about planning. I'm a little more spontaneous, but those differences never felt like threats. Instead, they balanced us out. She encouraged me to try things I'd never considered before, and I gave her the freedom to relax when she needed it. We weren't perfect, but we were real, and that was worth everything. Sometimes friends who knew both Emily and me would bring her up in conversation. They'd say she seemed different now. More subdued, maybe even sad. I'd listen politely. But I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to know. Her life was her own to live. And mine was mine. One night, sitting on the balcony with Sarah, watching the sunset stain the sky orange and pink, I realized that Emily had been right about one thing: opening the marriage had changed everything. But it hadn't destroyed me. It had set me free. She thought she was opening a door for herself, but she ended up opening one for me. And through that door, I walked into a life I wouldn't trade for anything. If she regrets her decision, that's her story to tell. Mine is simpler. I loved, I lost, I learned, and I found love again. And this time, I'm holding onto it not because I'm afraid to be alone, but because it's exactly where I want to be. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I think about the person I was before all this happened. The version of me who was willing to sacrifice everything just to keep a relationship that wasn't working. I realize now how much I lost, not just time or energy, but a piece of myself. The part that believed I deserved better, that I deserved to be truly happy. Meeting Sarah changed that. She showed me that love doesn't have to be complicated or painful. It can be kind, patient, and uplifting. With her, I learned what it means to be truly seen and accepted for who I am, flaws and all. Emily's choice to open our marriage was painful, but it was also a catalyst, a brutal kind of gift that forced me to confront the truth about what I wanted and needed. It was the breaking point that shattered illusions and made way for something real. Looking back, I don't hate Emily. I don't even resent her. I just feel sorry for the path she chose, a path that led to regret and loneliness. And I'm grateful that I had the strength to walk away and find my own happiness. Life is unpredictable, messy, and sometimes cruel. But it's also beautiful and full of second chances. I'm living proof that even when things fall apart, you can rebuild. Not as the same person, but as someone stronger, wiser, and more whole. I don't know what the future holds, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. But I do know this: I'm no longer afraid of what comes next, because I'm finally free to choose it for myself. And that freedom, that peace, is worth more than any marriage that wasn't meant to be. Years have passed since everything fell apart, and in that time, I've learned to embrace a life that's entirely my own. The wounds of the past still exist, they always will, but they no longer define me. Instead, they remind me of how far I've come and what I'm capable of overcoming. Sarah and I have built a partnership based on trust, respect, and genuine affection. We laugh together, support each other's dreams, and face challenges as a team. The scars left by my previous marriage have faded into the background, no longer shadows that darken my days, but lessons that guide my way. Sometimes, I think about Emily not with bitterness or anger, but with a quiet understanding. People make choices based on their own fears and desires, and sometimes those choices hurt the ones around them. I won't pretend her decisions didn't cause pain, but holding onto that pain only chained me to a past I wanted to leave behind. Instead, I chose to forgive, not for her sake, but for mine. Forgiving freed me to live fully in the present and to hope for a future unburdened by resentment. It's not always easy, but it's necessary. Looking back, I realized that opening our marriage wasn't just a turning point for our relationship, it was a turning point for me personally. It forced me to confront uncomfortable truths, to make difficult decisions, and ultimately, to reclaim my life. Now, When I see couples struggling or friends caught in toxic relationships, I don't judge them. I empathize. I know how complicated love can be, how fear and insecurity can cloud our judgment. But I also know that real love, true love, is patient, kind, and unwavering. My story is not just about loss or betrayal, it's about growth, resilience, and the power of second chances. It's a reminder that sometimes, the hardest endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. And as I look toward the future, I do so with hope, not just for myself, but for anyone who has ever felt broken and unsure if they could ever be whole again. Because if my journey has taught me anything, it's that healing is possible, happiness is within reach, and sometimes, the best thing you can do is let go and trust that life has better plans waiting for you.